Visit to Germany, 1956.
What years are we talking about with when you wrote this?
56.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were 18?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I.
And who arranged the exchange? Was it through a youth club or?
Yeah, the youth, Council of Youth.
Okay.
I think somewhere in here should be a list of. Oh, here it's in this folder there.
List of all the
list of our exchange here.
Okay.
Mine was Gudrun Lewis.
Did you go to her first, or did she come to you?
She came here.
Right.
To us.
Yeah.
And
Fortnight or a week?
I think it was a fortnight, I'm not sure. And then we went over there later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose after the war they were anxious to establish as many Anglo-German relations as they could.
Yeah. Yes. I got on very well with don't know whether it's on this, must be under the card. What was his name? Peter Siegel.
Okay.
I went to visit him one day. He asked me to go to their house.
Yeah.
And his mother
Yeah.
looked very much like what was the actress? One of the actresses. And she was a lovely lady. And anyway, Peter, we went into the woods, and we sat in one of these hide thing, watching the different birds that came along. You know, he's a nice lad. He's on one of the pictures, I think.
Yeah.
It was. Well, there he is.
Okay.
Peter.
Yeah. And was it part of the project that you all wrote diaries and?
Yes, that was the thing we were told to do.
Yeah. Did you ever read Gudrun's that she wrote, or did you ever?
No, I never saw
okay.
that.
Of course, it would have been in. How was her English? Was it good? Or?
Very good, yes.
Yeah.
Her father spoke a little bit of English.
Yeah.
Her mother didn't speak any English, but she translated.
Yeah.
They're lovely people.
Yeah. Did you keep in touch much after the visits? For a few years?
Not a lot, no. I went over for a second year, I think. I went with the group, but under my own steam sort of thing.
Yeah.
And forget who I stayed. I think I stayed with Gudrun.
Yeah.
Yes, it was very nice. Of course, I'd always thought that I would be going, because Uncle Harry he worked in, what was the thing he worked for? It was something for the government anyway. And I'd always thought I might be able to go over. But I never did, and that's why I got the place on this trip.
Let's just go for it.
Right. Ready?
Start from the top. Very good place to start.
Visit to Germany, 1956. From February to August is a long time, but it seemed even longer to me, and even now I can't believe it all really happened. Every meeting we had seemed to bring the holidays nearer, and then the weekend spent at Thamesfield helped us to get acquainted with our fellow travellers. When our exchangees came and went, I realised that in a short time I would be joining my companions on what proved to be the most exciting journey. The train journey to London was like many others I have made, but the fact that I had 19 travelling companions made it much more exciting. Crossing London from Paddington to Liverpool Street was not very pleasant, as we had unluckily clashed with the rush hour. However, it all added to what was for me the first holiday abroad. Once at Liverpool Street, it seemed no time at all before we were on the train to Harwich. It was in fact an hour. I was a little disappointed when I went through the customs. I imagined a line of suspicious gentlemen searching luggage and asking, "Have you anything to declare?" Instead, all I saw was a nice gentleman who, with a piece of chalk, marked my case and signalled me to move on. From the customs to the boat, the SS Arnhem, and here I was surprised to find that it was more luxurious than I expected. The boat was much larger than I had imagined, and the cabins were more comfortable. The cabin, which I shared with one of my companions, was an end one and had a porthole. When I woke on Saturday morning about 5 o'clock, I could see the winking lights of a lightship across the grey sea. I could hardly believe that I was travelling all night. It was thrilling to see the lightship across the wide expanse of water. We arrived at the Hook of Holland at about 6 o'clock, and after watching the boat being secured and the gangways fixed into position, we disembarked at about 6:15. First sight of Holland gave me an impression of cleanliness, and certain things which happened on the journey added to this. We boarded the Scandinavian Express, which was to take us through Holland into Germany, and the first thing I noticed was a team of men cleaning the carriage windows. Holland is a very flat country, and the impression of cleanliness which I had at the Hook never altered throughout the journey. The houses had large windows, most of which were open, and even the houses on the sides of the railway had white curtains or cream paintwork and white net curtains. As we reached the border between Holland and Germany, the frontier officials boarded the train and went along stamping passports and checking to see if anyone was carrying coffee or tea or anything else which one might try to smuggle into the country. Several of my companions had to pay for coffee and tea. I could see we were nearing Germany because the landscape was changing from the flat fields to the more hilly country, and there were some fir trees to be seen in the distance. When we reached Osnabrück, I was amused to see a lady sweeping the train corridor. When the first of the party left us at Minden, I knew it would not be long before I reached Stadthagen to meet once again my exchangee, Gudrun Lewis. Gudrun and I had an hour to wait at the station for a bus to take us to Langenbruch, which is about 3 miles from Stadthagen. When the bus came, I was surprised to see the conductor helped to put a pram on. When I remarked on it to Gudrun, she told me it was the usual thing to allow prams on buses. Of course, the prams were made like baskets, which are quite light. We arrived at Langenbrook quicker than I thought we would, and after meeting the Lewis family and settling in, I had my first meal in Germany. It may be that certain parts of Germany have different foods, but I was surprised that the food was not very different from that which I usually have. One thing I really did enjoy was the coffee. It was much nicer than I have ever had in England. The tea was not so good because it was so weak, but as I do not really like tea, that did not worry me. The thing which is eaten most in Germany is sausage, or Wurst, as it was called. There are different kinds of sausage, some of which are very nice, some are very big, some like one I saw which was as long as an umbrella. The black bread which is normally eaten is heavy and very peculiar taste. I did not dislike the bread, but my host brought white bread or rolls for me. The rolls were very good, especially when they were hot. Apart from coffee, the drink I had most was Apfelsaft, which is like a flat cider. Later that day, Mr. Lewis took Gudrun and me in a car to visit a youth club where I met some of my companions. We saw some of the folk dances demonstrated, and several girls wore national costume. We showed the German group a dance which we had learned, and then we taught them how to do it. The next day, being Sunday, was a host day, and I went with Gudrun for a walk through the woods near her home. The scenery was lovely, and I wish I had a colour film in my camera to take a picture, as the ordinary black and white did not give the same impression. I also saw the new church in Wendhagen, which is joined to Langenbrook. The church is very pretty, was only built 7 years ago. Gudrun said she would take me inside, but we did not get time. In the evening, I went with Gudrun and some of the members of both parties to an inn in Wendhagen, where we danced and listened to music. It was strange to see dancing in an inn, and not only our group, but other people joined in as well. On Monday, I walked into Stadthagen with Gudrun. From there, we went by coach to Torshamberg-Lippe. First, we visited the new school at Lindhall, a lovely school, very modern, with a beautiful hall. The hall floor is made of coloured stone like marble. At the end of one corridor is a painting of a street scene, which was done by students. From there, we went to Steinhude Meer, where we went on a boat over to the island Wilhelmshaven. On the island, I bought souvenirs and postcards, and then with some of my companions, I explored the rest of the island. On our return across the lake, I photographed a girl on a pedal raft. It was a bicycle which turned a paddle on a raft and propelled it along. There were also some boats like pedal cars on the lake. That evening, when we returned to Stadthagen, I went with some of the group to the cinema to see East of Eden. I found I could understand some of the story, although the dialogue was in German. Unlike English cinemas, the tickets had to be bought before we actually went into the cinema, because the place fills up so quickly. The next morning we cycled to the swimming pool in Stadthagen. The first thing I saw was the lake around one side of the pool. It looked so natural, and only a path separated the lake from the pool. One very interesting thing was that we were not allowed on the lawns. The superintendent said the grass was not strong enough and would go away if it was walked on. This was also the same in the park. In the afternoon, we attended a reception in the Stadthagen Cafe in Stadthagen, where we were presented with books of the pictures of Germany. On Wednesday morning, all the Stadthagen group went to Buckeburg for a reception. In the town hall, we all sat on chairs around a table. Each chair had the name of a councillor carved on the back. After the reception, we visited the Schloss. The chapel of the castle is a magnificent place with statues and ornamentation in gilt. I think it was really too decorative. Later that day, I again went to the swimming pool, and this time with some of the group from Buckerborg. Later, we walked to a favourite meeting place called the Ice Bar. They serve some lovely ices there, and we could have a choice of 5 flavours, all topped with cream. The next 3 days, I think, were the best days in the whole holiday. These days were spent in the Harz. On the journey, we went to Hamelin, Goslar, Bad Grund, Bad Harzburg, Hannenklee and Malkenhaus and other places. At Bad Grund there was a cave of stalactites, but unfortunately the group I was with lost the way and did not see inside the cave. We stayed at a hotel at Klostal. This hotel, we were told, belongs to a group known as Friends of Nature. The first evening at the hostel, we had a dance arranged for us at the hotel, about a mile up the road. Although we were supposed to return to the hostel at 10 o'clock, the warden allows us to stay until about 10:30, which I thought was very kind. The next day we went to a place called Torfhaus. From Torfhaus we could see the Brocken, which is the highest place in the Harz. We then walked from Torfhaus to Malkenhaus, a very pleasant walk through the forest. The scenery was beautiful and the scent of the pine trees was wonderful. The place I liked best was Bad Harzburg, a very pretty town, so clean and it seemed so light. Outside Bad Harzburg is the Radow waterfall, which is very pleasant. In the town is a place called the House of Nature, which has a stuffed bear in the entrance. There is also a cable mountain railway, which seems to go for miles up the mountainside. We stayed for 2 nights and 3 days in the Harz. On the tour we went to Goslar. In Goslar is the Kaiser House, where the emperors used to stay. The main hall has a magnificently painted ceiling. The painting is of a chariot with 4 horses. The guide told us the 2 inside horses follow us all round the room with their eyes. It was quite true. Every time I looked up, the horses were looking in a different direction, or so it seemed. In another room is a table with a coat of arms made up of millions of beads placed under the glass. There are beads of many colours, all making up the intricate pattern. The doors of this room is magnificent. It is called the Door of the Gods, and on it are carved statues of all the gods in gilt. At Klostal and Hannenklee there is a wooden church. The church at Klostal is the larger of the 2. I like the one at Hannenklee best. This one was repaired, so it was not possible to take the photographs. We also went to Hamel, which I was disappointed we could not stay long enough to see the places of interest in the town. As it was, we only had time for a cup of coffee, which we could not drink because the milk was sour. During the journey, the bus stopped several times for us to admire the view. One of these stops was at Oka Talsperry, or translated Oka Valley Dam. This was very nice indeed. The dam itself is a wonderful sight, and also the surroundings. We were told that the waters of the dam covers a village. All the roads led down into the water, and there are ruins of houses on the banks. These reminded me of the story of the last days of Dolwyn, where a Welsh village is flooded by the waters of the dam. On our return journey, we stayed for 2 hours in Hanover. I think Hanover is a marvellous place, so light and clean, and we had the impression that although there were so many large buildings, there was also plenty of open space. Some of the group, including myself, were going to the swimming pool, but it was too far away. We sat by the lake and watched part of a regatta. then walk back in time for the bus to return. On Sunday morning I went with Gudrun and her brothers Willie and Gunter to a clearing in the woods where we played badminton, which I enjoyed very much. In the afternoon Mr. Lewis took us to Porta Westfalica, where there is a wonderful statue of Kaiser Wilhelm Denkmal. The statue is huge, and the hand of the figure seemed enormous when I was stood looking up at it. That evening, Gudrun and her father and I went to a restaurant near Bukkeborg called The Sweet Mother. We had a very pleasant evening, and it seemed no time at all before we were going home in the car, although we had been there for 4 hours. Monday of the second week, and how quickly that first week went by. This day we travelled to Volkswagen Works. On our way there we stopped in Hanover to see the House of Youth. This is a lovely place where members of different youth organisations can spend their days studying or just meeting people. It has a nice library and a canteen, rooms and halls which are named after cities all over the world. I thought the visit to the Volkswagen Works would be more interesting for the male members of the party, but I was surprised that I was so interested. It is an enormous place with cars or parts going from one operation to another on overhead conveyor belts. I was interested in the place where the car bodies joined the chassis and were finally driven away for testing. After touring the Volkswagen Works, we then returned to Hanover. A small group, including myself, went to the cinema. The title of the film was in German, though I do not know it. After the film, we again assembled outside the House of Youth to begin the journey back to Stadthagen. To be able to accompany us to the Volkswagen Work, our host asked for the day off from school. On Tuesday morning, we assembled in the school grounds at 7:45. As school begins at 8 o'clock in Germany and ends at 1 o'clock. I was not very impressed by the school. Nobody appeared to be doing very much work, but perhaps it was because it was the beginning of term. On Wednesday evening, we again went to the Sweet Mother, as there were 2 birthdays to celebrate, those of Heidi Muller and Helmut Holst. I had a wonderful evening, and it must have been 3 o'clock in the morning before I went to bed. Thursday brought a meeting at Schloss Baum, where we discussed the holiday and its happenings. We were asked to pull the programme to pieces, as it were. One thing we agreed on was that the holiday should have lasted 3 weeks instead of 2. It was a terrible day and not at all pleasant for cycling, but being in another country made all the difference. Had I been cycling to work in the rain, I would have grumbled, but it did not seem so bad on holiday. Friday, the last whole day. How quickly a fortnight has gone. In the morning I went with Gudrun's young brother, Uli, through the woods where we gathered wild raspberries. Later in the day, Mr. Lewis took us into Stadthagen to do some shopping. On the evening, there was a farewell party at the Olkrug, a large restaurant and dance hall, where we were given a little glass ashtray, souvenir of Bukkeborg. It was a nice party, and I was sorry when it ended, as it seemed to bring Saturday so much nearer. We left Stadthagen at 4:30 on Saturday, 15 minutes later than scheduled. Some of the German party came to Bukkeborg with us, where the rest of the party joined us. The journey home was quite uneventful, except for the sea voyage, which I would prefer to forget. I cannot finish without mentioning my host, the Lewis family. Gudrun is the only one who speaks English, so she had to be my interpreter. Mrs. Lewis couldn't speak no English at all, but Mr. Lewis made a good attempt. However, we got on very well together. The two boys were like all boys, noisy and quarrelsome, but I loved them both. As I could not speak their language, nor they mine, we decided to try teach each other. They are very nice people and helped to make my visit so very happy that I would like to visit them again in the near future.
And we've done it. Like I thought, it was probably taken about 3 days. That is fantastic. Brilliant. Thank you.